Hey guys, this is going to be another quick Linux command video. Check the link in the description for more info and for copy and paste examples. The Linux cut command is used to split apart lines in a file. So this is more simple than awk, but it's a whole lot less functional than awk. And the other big thing is that it only supports a single literal character as a delimiter. So that's a huge limiting factor. So basically when you run cut, you're going to use one of three parameters. You're going to use a -b to specify a bytes list that you're going to take. You're going to specify a bytes list with a -b or -c for a character list, or a -f for a fields list. Right now, we'll come back to characters and bytes, but for fields, you would specify you use a -f for fields, and you're going to specify the field that you want, and you're going to use a -d to specify the delimiter. Now, if you don't specify a delimiter, the field that you split upon is a tab by default. So this is going to split by tabs by default. So if you have something delimited by tabs, that's great. But if not, you have to specify a delimiter with a D, or like this. So let's try this with a comma separated list. So a list of basically a file with a CSV file, a file of comma separated values. So you can make a comma the delimiter. So you say -d and put a comma in quotes in single quotes here. That's your delimiter, is the comma, and you have an F to select the first column. Now let's just specify test test.csv, and there we go. There's the first column. Now that file actually looked like this. The file is basically all a bunch of lines that are the same, but you see they're delimited by commas. So you want to take that first column, you can do it like this. So that's why we choose this as the delimiter, and this specifies the column. Now if you want to take two columns, you'd say comma 2. So 1 and 2, columns 1 and 2. There we go. Now we could say columns 1 and 3, like that, or we could say columns 1, 3, and 7, like this. Now let's say if you put column 2 after that, you're going to be selecting column 2, but it doesn't mean it prints it out in that order. So it's actually still going to print them out in order, even though it skips. It only takes the columns you select or the fields you select, but it prints them out in the order it chooses. So any case, let's try another. Let's see here. Let's try with a file. Let's change this to a space, and we have another file called test0. So we're going to use a space as a delimiter, and there we go. We basically ran the same thing. Now let's take a look at test0. It's the same thing, but delimited by spaces instead of commas. So you can see here we took basically fields 1, 3, 7, and 2. So yeah, the same thing that we had done above. 1, 3, 7, and 2, and that's what you get there. So let's see. Next example. Another common use case for this is not to operate on a file, but also to operate on piped input. Now you can run PSEF, and it's going to look like this. So if you want to pipe PSEF into cut-d and delimit it by spaces, and it's not completely cleanly delimited by spaces, but it's kind of delimited. It's not neatly delimited, and the spaces are going to be there's more than one between columns, so it's a little bit tricky to split this up based on spaces, which is why cut is not a perfect tool for data that's a little bit messy like this. You're better off with clean, well-formatted data. If it's like this, it's not the best tool to use, and you're really better off with awk. Now, in any case, so we can delimit it with a space and say f-f1. So we're going to take the first column, and we can split out that first column, but it's a little bit tricky to select the second column because it's just a space. You can only delimit it based on a single space at a time, and we have multiple spaces between these columns, so that's all we're going to get with this. So that's kind of suboptimal. Now the next example, we're going to take a file like say at test.txt. You know what? Let's just look at test0. Now we can say cut dash b for bytes, and we can specify 1, 2, and 3. Now notice we don't need to specify a delimiter because we're not splitting out fields, we're just taking bytes. Now if you are just going to select exact specific bytes, this tool is actually pretty good. It's a really nice simple tool for that. So take the first 3 bytes of this file, and there we go. So we see we have an A, a space, and a B, and that's exactly what it grabs. Now we could tell it to grab 1, 3, and 5. And that's going to give you ABC, right? So you're skipping a number and you're skipping the spaces in between them. So that's how you could use a B. Now you could do the same thing with a C, because bytes and characters are going to be basically the equivalent in this file. So same thing, swap a B for a C. It's the same thing effectively. So unless you have different sized bytes and characters, that's how that's going to work. So any case, let's see, what else do we have? Cut dash F, 1, 2, 3. I think this is all of the, you know, you could also specify a series like this. So you could say 1 through 5 like this, and that's going to take all of the columns and the spaces. It's basically going to take characters 1 through 5, which would be A space, B space, A space, B space, and C. So that's 1 through 5, right? So let's see, what else can we do? So yeah, that's using a range, and you can also specify. I think you can remove the end here and just take everything after a certain point. So you could change that to like a 3 and only take a subset of it. So this is kind of nice to be able to do this. Take a snippet like that, or you could start from the beginning like this. Now, what else can we do with this? So that's using ranges. It's using we've tried spaces as a delimiter. You can use colons as a delimiter. And slashes. So let's see, 2. Yep. So just for fun, one 3 out of test2.txt. So using a colon as a delimiter, you can grab fields 1 and 2. So we've got A and C here. So this is, you know, using fields instead of characters or bytes, using a delimiter, right? So nothing too crazy there. And what else for this? We can still specify it like that. So we could still start from like say 5 to the end. So same thing, the same way we were cutting it before. And let's see, what else do we want to show you? So we've done, all right, we could only show delimited lines. So you can add a dash S if you only want to show delimited lines. No effect here, but let's try editing. And let's just add an extra line in here, just for fun. Now, let's see how that looks. Now, notice how we've selected basically 5 to the end, and it only takes those fields. But then when we have a field, we have something that's not delimited at all, it won't bother to select different fields. It just shows you the whole line. So that might be undesirable. So you can use a dash S, and that's going to remove any undelimited lines. Now, if you want to choose the opposite of what was selected, so let's say if you had selected this, you selected basically 5 to the end, and you want to choose the opposite of that, you can say dash dash complement like this, and that's going to take the complement of it. So you can choose A through D, which is basically the complement of E through N, right? And what else should we, okay, we can also modify the output delimiter. So when it splits by a delimiter, it basically uses that delimiter to split out to delimit the output also. So what we can do, we can say output delimiter equals, and we can make it anything we want. We could make it an equal sign, for example, and try that out. Everything split by an equal sign. We could change this into like an arrow like this, or we could change it to something like this. Delimit it by any string we feel like this. Delimit it by the word test. Or something more practical, like a pipe like this. So yeah, you have all those. That's basically everything. So you have a lot of options, but it does have its limitations. It's actually a really simple, straightforward, practical tool for splitting apart and cutting well formatted input. So if you have like protocol packets or something that are coming in a known format, or output from a database or something, it's great for that if you don't want to poke around with awk or something. But if you have less predictable input, then you're going to need a tool like awk or some other tool, and or even a real scripting language. But yeah, awk can basically do everything that cut can do also, and more. It's just a little bit more complicated to use. So yeah, that's about everything we want to show you for the cut command. Remember, check the links in the description for more info. Hit the subscribe button for more useful content like this. We also have a ton of other more interesting content covering things like coding, hardware, software, servers, Raspberry Pis, 3D printing, and a whole lot more. Hopefully you found this useful. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on that next video.